Bob Barker's final Come On Down is coming up fast, marking an end to 35 years as the host of The Price is Right. Hattie Kaufman spoke to Bob about the legacy he's leaving behind.
It has been a lot of fun. It really has. I've enjoyed, well, I would never have done it this long had I not enjoyed it. And it's tough leaving this show because it has been a hit from day one. We've had 35 years never worrying about ratings, always right up on top.
Would it have been a hit without you?
Well, my agent says no.
That's what counts.
But it has been a real joy. Full houses, you know, people waiting all night to come in. And it's just been so much fun that for years, maybe 5 to 10 years, I've thought, well, I'm going to wrap it up this year. And then I'd think, no, one more year.
Really? You've been thinking about this retirement for some time.
I did. Not because I didn't enjoy the show and not because I wasn't feeling good or anything like that, just because I was getting so old, I thought, you're supposed to retire.
Well, what made you decide now?
Well, this is my 50th year on national television and my 35th year on this show, and I thought it was a neat time to call a halt. And so I chose to do it this year.
But soon there'll be a morning when you wake up and you won't have to get ready and come in here.
Bingo. That's exactly what worries me. I've had a show since I was 21 years old. And for years my wife worked with me. And we would be on vacation and we'd be talking about the show. And we'd have a long weekend, we'd be talking about the show. And always thinking about the show. And the first morning that I wake up and there's no the show, I don't know, I may have to go into a rest home or something. I have to get care.
No one's asked you to leave. No one would want you to leave. You have people lining up to see you overnight, people flying across the country.
That's right.
You're really walking away from it on your own.
I'm walking away from it, but you have. I want to leave while I'm still wanted. I don't want someone to come and say, "Don't you think it's about time you leave?" You know. And I want to leave while the show is doing splendidly, and it all just kind of seemed to work this year, to happen this year.
People see only what they see on television. They don't realize during the commercial break you're not back there resting. You're often out here keeping the crowd warmed up and not letting them fall asleep and energizing the room.
I do that for a selfish reason. I get them up and I stay with them because I don't want them to start sagging. And then when we start the next segment, I have to get them up again. I've always done that. I like to stay right with them, and the show begins when I come through. The show begins out in the line, actually. They have fun out there. But when I come through the doors, I'm there to stay until it's goodbye. And I want them to have fun throughout the hour so that they're always fun on the air.
And they're wild.
Oh, they're wild.
They're wild. You've been lifted off your feet.
Oh, yes.
How many times have you been kissed?
Oh, I think it's now 9,412. That doesn't count today. We have to total that up.
Most memorable moment?
Well, that's no problem at all. More than 25 years ago, we had a young lady seated right out in this area wearing a tube top. Her name was called to be on the show. She jumped to her feet, began jumping up and down, and both of them came right out of the tube top.
Tube didn't jump
along.
She
came on down, and they came on out on CBS. And no one has ever forgotten. And I was still behind the doors here. I didn't see it, you see. And so I came out, and they were screaming. And I thought, oh, they love me. They love me. And then I became conscious, I guess, because I realized no one had ever applauded like this for me. And so
they weren't looking at you.
And I turned to Johnny Olson, who was our announcer at that time, and I said, Johnny, what has happened out here? And Johnny said, this girl has given her all for you.
Do you have some advice for whoever might be walking through the door after you?
I do. I will. One of the young men who have auditioned for the job asked me that, and I gave him the same answer. I told him the same thing that Ralph Edwards, who created Truth or Consequences and hosted it himself. He was a fine host. When I was doing my first show, he came to my dressing room and he said, Bob, you're the star of the show. He said, you go out there and you do this just the way you think you want to do it. Don't imitate me and don't imitate anyone else. Be Bob Barker. And that's my advice for Joe Smith if he's going to do a show.
Be Joe.
Don't try to imitate people. It's good to see. I used to watch a lot of hosts, and I try to see things that I liked and I didn't like that they did.
Bob Baker, the legendary host of The Price is Right, has died. I welcome you guys back on here. If you're new, consider subscribing, liking, and also leave a comment below this video. Now, Bob Baker was 99 years old. The legendary presenter and host of the Price is Right show actually passed on. According to the family, he passed on as a result of natural causes. Baker died in his longtime Hollywood Hills home this week, according to what Roger Neal, who actually served as his publicist right from way back in 1987 through 1994 and again in 2020, announced on Saturday on behalf of Baker's girlfriend and would-be wife, that is Nancy Burnet. In a very heartbreaking and touching statement, he came out and said via social media that it's with profound sadness that we announce the world's greatest AMC who actually ever lived, that is Bob Baker. He has left us. Neal continued in a statement and said, I'm so proud of the trailblazing work Baker did and we did together to expose the cruelty to animals in the entertainment industry, and of course including working to improve the plight of the abused and exploited animals in the United States and internationally. He actually added and said, we were great friends over these 40 years and he will be missed. Baker is survived by his half-brother, that is Kent Velandra, and half-nephews Robert Velandra and Chip Velandra, as well as a half-niece, that is Vicky Velandra Kelly. So we all know the TV personality has always battled a couple of health-related issues in the past, and of course in January 2019, paramedics, by the way, were even called to Baker's Hollywood Hills home after he fell at his residence. Although an ambulance was on the scene, he was not hospitalized. And month early on, Baker's management actually confirmed to the press that an ambulance and a fire department had responded to his Hollywood Hills home for a non-emergency back-related issue. Afterwards, his manager came out and said he was already fine and resting at his home. So the incident came more than a year after he fell and hit his head on his home. That was, I think, in around 2017, June, July in there. But of course, we all know he served as the host of The Price is Right for 35 years before announcing his retirement at the age of 87. So this is a man who was really a legendary MC, a legendary host, and Bob actually will be always remembered because his impact and influence has actually transcended generations to generations, from the older generation to the 90s, the 2000s, and up to just recently when he retired. So he began his official career, that was in around 1956, and unprecedentedly such a legend had actually lasted for close to 50 years. He must be given enough respect, Bob Baker. So in this moment in time, we'll be bringing you all the funeral memorial updates, and of course, in case the family avails them, we'll be bringing them to you. So continue resting in power, the king, that is Bob Baker.